some amazing, great news for you. Vladimir Putin came out and said Russia is ready for peace negotiations with Ukraine. So this first came out, and then Trump's envoy, his new guy who's running the show, came out and said, we've got a plan. He said Trump's envoy's plan to end the war with Putin with Revel in. This is from CNN, guys. They talked about the front lines would be frozen by a ceasefire. They talked about lifting limited sanctions relief. They talked about Ukraine would not be asking to give up reclaimed occupied territory. This is huge, huge breaking news, everybody, that the Trump has been working behind the scenes, working to garner a peace deal with Russia, with Ukraine. This is all being reported right now through really mainstream outlets, and I love it. We need to stop all the killing. We need a plan. I'll show you the details in a moment in more detail, and we'll work through all the stipulations, all the ceasefire deals, so that you can be up to date with all that, because Trump is actually making it happen. This is wonderful. I love it. And at the same time, too, Trump and Johnson are going after Biden and Harris for all their warmongering. They're citing that Biden shouldn't even be president, and Johnson is pushing to use the 25th Amendment on Biden to get him out of office, citing cognitive decline and escalating a war to the point of potentially World War III. We also have it where a lot of the traveling through the Thanksgiving seasons has been interrupted, and because illegal migrants have been taking seats from people that purchase seats using the CBP One app to fly commercial. And they don't even have to show ID. All they have to do is just show the app, and then they get a free ticket to wherever they want to go on the taxpayer dollars. So this is, everybody's outraged. Everybody's like, this makes no sense. People lost flights. It was literally insane. On top of that, we have the ceasefire deal that we had with Israel and Hezbollah. Well, it may have been violated because for some freaking reason, Israel launched a huge missile strike into Lebanon. So they're now talking over what's going on with that. And guess what, guys? Let me tell you this. When you got the dream team of Elon, RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, Vivek Ramaswamy, you got all these people, they're a part of Trump's dream team. Well, guess who else is trying to join? Mark Zuckerberg. Yep. Facebook, CEO of Facebook Meta. He met with Trump at Mar-a-Lago, and now there's reports that he is wanting to be part of the reform movement. And he wants to bring national renewal through Meta, through Facebook, to help bring America back. But the big question is, do we trust him? Just want to say thank you to everybody that's watching. We got a ton of breaking news today. If you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button so I can serve you every day with the top news. And thank you to everybody that is a member of the channel. Y'all are killing it in the chat already. Good to see y'all. Love y'all so much. If you want to be the member, the link is in the description to join, as well as to follow me on X. And thank you so much to everybody for giving a super chat donations. Want to give some special shout outs to Rosie Figueroa and Elaine Demeen. And guys, sometimes y'all give the super chats and we're not live on stream, but I do want to give you those shout outs. But thank y'all so much for all your support, everybody. We got a ton of breaking news to get into today, and I want to make sure that you're informed. Check this out.
Ceasefire with Hezbollah potentially in jeopardy less than 48 hours after it was announced. Lebanon says 2 are hurt after Israeli forces launched a strike on a number of southern towns. This is in response to what Israel says were actions that violated the truce. Here with the reaction is former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Mr. Secretary, thank you for joining us this morning.
Mike Pompeo.
We look at this and we say, you can't make it 2 days in a ceasefire. This is not going in the right direction. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, thanks for having me on. Look, I'm unsurprised that the ceasefire hasn't held even for just a couple days.
Wow.
This conflict's been going on a long time. Hezbollah didn't agree as part of the ceasefire to give up their goal. Their goal is the destruction of Israel. Yeah. It was almost certain that their intention would be to go continue this conflict. That's what we, I think, have seen. I hope it gets back to a more peaceful situation so these Israeli citizens that live in the northern part of Israel can get back home. But I'm also confident that the Israeli Defense Forces know this as much as I do. They're going to do the things that are necessary to protect the Israeli people. But for the United States to have put this pressure on Israel to have signed this deal, which almost certainly will prove not constructive in actually continuing to allow the Israelis to do what they need to take down Hezbollah, lock, stock, and barrel. I regret that, and I'm unsurprised by what we've seen in the last 48 hours. I expect you'll continue to see this kind of conflict.
Yeah, you really kind of answered my next question, which is where is this pressure for a ceasefire coming from? And it seems like the Biden administration, maybe they're trying to claim a small victory before he gets out of office. Maybe it's a genuine attempt to calm what is turning into a multi-front war. Where is the Biden administration as opposed to what the incoming Trump administration on this conflict in Israel?
Kevin, I think everyone's playing to the Trump administration now. I think both sides were entered into the ceasefire with some idea of what's coming next from President Trump, which will be enormous pressure on the Iranian regime. That's the difference. The Biden administration has been trying to get the Israelis to stop defending themselves for now over a year. There are still hostages, American hostages even, Kevin, held in Gaza by the Iranians today. They're proxy Hamas, holding them directly.
Yeah.
This ceasefire in the north is a Biden administration's last-ditch attempt to say, see, look, we did something. We solved a problem, frankly, a problem that they created the conditions for, sort of like the arsonist putting the fire out. But make no mistake about it, the conditions haven't changed. The Iranians are still trying to destroy Israel and the United States of America. This is but one small front in a bigger conflict, which will require the United States to support the Israelis in their efforts to diminish Iran's capacity to commit terror around the world. That's what this is really about, Kevin.
Well, what's happening in the Middle East is not even the only war that we're worried about. Obviously, what's happening in Ukraine is potentially a much larger concern. This is President Putin talking about the Biden administration and the incoming Trump administration. Let's listen.
It's possible that the current administration wants to create difficulties for the future administration. That is also a possibility.
Ain't that the
truth?
truth?
In my view of the newly elected president, he's quite a clever and experienced man. I think he will find a solution, given that he has tackled such a challenge as reclaiming the White House.
Okay,
And guys, in just a moment, sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to show you all the deals that they've got so far on the peace deal that they're trying to work through right now.
Partisan politics out, right? The left will say, well, that's proof that they're cozying up and things like that. If we just look at what's happening, so Ukraine uses American-made missiles further into Russia than previously thought they would or could or were allowed to. In return, Russia fires back. My question is there any chance that President Zelensky is trying to bait the U.S. into this war before Biden leaves office?
Oh, I don't think that's likely. I think what's really happening is both leaders, President Zelensky and Putin, are both trying to create the conditions where they have more leverage as these negotiations begin, as this conversation, frankly, has already started. President Biden is largely irrelevant to this conflict in Europe today. It's already President-elect, former President Trump, who is driving the process there in Europe. I think they're both trying to gain leverage. They're both trying to be in a better position when the conversations begin about how to create peace there. They know that during the 4 years where I was in office and President Trump was in charge, they know that we had created a deterrence model that had actually worked for the Ukrainian people. We didn't have Ukrainians being killed every day. We didn't have what you've seen in the last 48 hours, massive missile attacks on the Ukrainian energy infrastructure. They know this is the new sheriff coming back, and they're both trying to get in a better spot to get a better outcome when that happens.
Yeah, President Trump said he could solve these conflicts even before he gets into office. I hope and pray he does. Secretary Mike Pompeo.
Guys, and that's the beautiful part that we're seeing right now, because I'm showing you here that this Vladimir Putin came out, said that Russia is still ready for peace negotiations with Ukraine. As soon as that came out, just hours later, Trump's Ukraine envoy, this is the guy that he is tasked, just like Homan is for the border, this guy is for the Ukraine-Russia war. And so with that, these are the actual stipulations that they have talked about, and everybody kind of is getting in line right now for. The front lines would be frozen by a ceasefire and demilitarized zone imposed. For agreeing to this, Russia would get limited sanctions relief and a full relief only when a peace deal is signed that is to Ukraine's liking. There would be a levy on Russian energy exports that would pay for Ukraine's reconstruction. Because remember, Russia started it. Ukraine would not be asked to give up on reclaiming occupied territory, but it would agree to pursue it through diplomacy alone. and it accepts that this would require future diplomatic breakthrough, which probably will not occur before Putin leaves office. So this is big stuff, everybody, that right now Trump's got a guy. They've been working on a peace deal. They've been working on negotiating one. All the while, you have Biden, who is just trying to add fuel to the fire. And I just want to say thank you so much, Summerman, for the super chat. Let's go. Said Trump is on fire. He will get it done. Have faith. He's got this. And thank you so much, Teresa Pittman, for the super chat. I love it. Y'all show them some love in the chat, everybody. So we can see here that Trump is truly pushing through, has the right people in place, and is working to make sure that we get a peace deal. And they've already got stipulations out there. I love it. But it's so funny, too, because the country above us, Canada, is literally freaking out right now. And there's lots of deals and more meetings that are happening because Trump is pulling the tariffs on them. And guys, I'm telling you, I love it that people are finally getting into check now that Trump's getting into office. Check this out.
On tariffs is already on, and I want to get your take on it first, sort of where you think this may be headed.
Well, first of all, you can already feel, he's not even in office yet, and you can already feel the tectonic shifts happening on the world stage. And what Trump does, which is why he was so successful in his first term and why he'll be successful in a second term, is he employs a strategy of escalation dominance. So what he does is he signals to our allies or adversaries around the world that he's willing to jump to the top of the escalation ladder and dares them to follow him, but then he also offers them a way down the escalation ladder through negotiation. So he says to Mexico, I'm imposing 25% tariffs on you if you don't shut down the border, but I'm willing to talk to you and figure out a way that we can do this together. And they know that he's willing to do it, which is why she's calling him. This is why Canada is freaking out right now, because they know that he'll actually do this if they don't shut down the border. And I have a prediction for you. They're going to shut down the border. It's going to happen because they don't want 25% tariffs on everything that they send to America.
No, they don't. You're right. And under the first Trump administration, I remember going down to Mexico's southern border, and AMLO had actually put Mexican military there to stop migrants from crossing from Guatemala. Yep. But I took a look this morning at the press out of Mexico City, and it seems that they are really making the case that, hey, the border is already shut down. Things are calm. In fact, President Biden sounding off on lower numbers when he was talking about the tariffs. Listen here.
You know, the cooperation with the outgoing president and the incoming president, the illegal crossings are down considerably to what they were back when he was in office. There's a lot more to do, but
guys, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it just makes me just irritated. He said, yeah, border crossings are down like they were back when Trump was president. What was the whole purpose then of the past 3 years of letting in 20 plus illegal immigrants? What was the whole purpose? It was all because you want to get more voters. The whole dang reason. And now he's trying to say, oh, everything's great now.
I hope they reconsider.
They're lower now, Mark, but we can show you the totality of the Biden-Harris administration versus the first Trump 4 years. You've got more than 8 million encounters at the southwest border under Biden-Harris, where it's only almost 2.5 total under Trump. How do you think this figures into it?
Yeah, I think Joe Biden's definition of a closed border is not what most of the American people would suggest. And it's not just that we have to close the border and stop the flow in here. They've let in over 10 million illegal migrants into this country. Those illegal housing, feeding, caring for those migrants cost the American people $150 billion last year. In 1 year, $150 billion. So it's not just that we've got to stop the flow of the illegal migrants into our country and shut down the border. They've got to take them back. Donald Trump is going to deport those people, and so he's going to need their cooperation in taking them back. And when those flights start taking off from the United States with these illegal migrants going back to Mexico City, she better take them, or there's going to be an economic price to be paid for by Mexico.
We'll see, because we know on day one, Trump plans to reinstate the Remain in Mexico policy, and that takes two to tango. Claudia Sheinbaum will have to be a willing partner in that. Quickly, before we run out of time, the other thing, I was watching in New York City yesterday, you had protesters turning out. The cover of the New York Post today, calling it the balloony left. There were lots of arrests in a rainy New York City. What do you make of that?
So here's the problem with our immigration system. It's not just that we're letting millions of people into our country illegally. It's that we're letting millions of people into our country legally who hate America. Most of the people at these protests are not Americans. They're people here who are on visas. Most of the people harassing Jewish students on college campuses are not Americans. They're here on student visas. We need to deport them too. If you hate America, you should. Coming to our country is a privilege. Coming here to study is a privilege. Coming here to work is a privilege. If you hate America and you're harassing our citizens and spreading anti-Semitism, you need to be deported. And I think one of the things Trump should do immediately when he comes into office is take the power away from colleges to decide who comes into this country. And if you're leading a student protest that's calling from the river to the sea, that Israel be destroyed, if you're harassing Jewish students, your student visa gets revoked and you get deported too. So it's not just illegal migrants that need to be deported. It's some of the people we've allowed in legally too.
So we saw under the Biden administration, this anti-Israel left, I think many would argue, successfully pulled the administration to the left on this. Do you think that same pressure will have an impact under President Trump?
Not a chance. Look, the Biden administration is weak. They were weak from the day one. They're weak on the border. They're weak when it comes to facing pressure from this far left. Donald Trump is going to stand with Israel. Donald Trump is going to bring strength back to our border policy. He's going to bring strength back to our foreign policy, and he's not going to care one whit what these people marching in these cities say about his policies.
Mark Thiessen.
Guys, I'm telling you, the immigration stuff, what's happening right before Biden leaves office is literally, it's such a spit in the face to Donald Trump, the new administration, to the American people. But there's things that are happening like this right here. So this is from Governor Greg Abbott over Texas. He said miles of razor wire barriers have been installed at the Texas-Mexico border to deter and repel illegal entry. Remember, they just won the case against the Biden-Harris administration. Look at this, despite the continued attacks and lawsuits, because the Biden-Harris administration literally came with military and started cutting up all these wires. They won't send the military to protect the southern border, but they'll go and send them to cut the wires to let people through, as well as to do this of what we've showed you in the past, that this happened right here. Like, this was all done by the military personnel, raising up the wire, allowing illegal immigrants to come in and unvetted, unchecked, and then, but thank God, Greg Abbott, they won the case, and now they're putting the razor wire back up, protecting our southern border, making sure that unvetted people don't get in. At the same time, too, there's still things that are happening with that stupid CBP One app, guys. I'm telling you, people are so fed up with all of Biden's policies and just being like pushed to the side, Americans being pushed to the side so that immigrants could get priority. Check this out.
Is on, and while millions of Americans will have to show IDs or passports to fly, there is one group who won't: migrants. Brooke Taylor is live outside of Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport with more on all of this. Brooke.
Molly, the first thing you do, as many people know, when you get to an airport, you wait on that security line, you have to show your ID, and you go through TSA. But migrants don't have to show any ID, and in many cases, they are waiting in special lines. So this holiday season...
Are you kidding me? They don't have to show ID, and they get to wait in a special line. Priority. What the crap is this administration trying to do, guys? Am I like... I feel like this is insane, but to what we are seeing now,
You're getting to the airport early to beat that holiday rush. Migrants, on the other hand, according to a new DHS Inspector General report, reveals they don't have to show any ID, passport. Instead, they can simply use the CBP One app as their documentation. They can even choose whether to allow officers to take their picture. The CBP One app, used by tens of thousands of migrants each month to seek asylum, has faced its share of criticism. The app relies on migrants to self-report their personal information. And earlier this year, the Biden administration even had to briefly pause its own program after fraud concerns. The Inspector General report states, quote, if CBP and ICE continue to allow non-citizens whose identities immigration officers cannot confirm to enter the country, they may inadvertently increase national security risks. A spokesperson for the DHS fired back at this report, telling Fox News that it is inaccurate and lacks context. But the Air Marshal National Security Director tells us this has been a concern for years. She's hopeful these problems will soon be a thing of the past with the new administration.
Wow.
We've been fighting this for over 3.5 years now because unvetted, unidentified people on our aircraft are a threat to our communities, not only in the aircraft, but when they land and take another flight. I don't know if Americans are aware, this isn't just a one-time thing. These illegals can fly on flights over and over and over.
And something else that stood out with this report that's important to mention is that they couldn't even say how many of the millions of migrants allowed into the U.S. each year didn't have an ID, because right now immigration officers are not required to document that. Molly.
Great information about what we know, what we don't know, and what is being allowed. Brooke, thank you very much.
Do y'all hear that? They get priority lines. They don't have to show ID. At the border, you don't have to show ID. They use this app, and then they basically vet themselves to get into the United States, and nothing in the CBP One app can verify whether this person is true or not. They can put in any name, John Doe, Sally Sue, whatever. Like, is that not crazy how the Biden administration, Harris administration steps over Americans, giving priority to people? And this happened yesterday because, again, there's always a lot of, around the holiday seasons, there's always a lot of traveling, and people were so frustrated because they're like, what's that line over there? Why did they get to go in first? Like, what the heck is going on? Like, it's such a spit in the face to Americans. Thank you so much, Mr. Tracy J. Norby, with the super chat. Let's go. He said, I cannot wait to get Biden Harris out of the office with the rest of the swamp monsters. They need to go so badly. These globalists think they're doing us well. They just spitting in our faces all day long. 100%. Y'all show Mr. Norby some love in the chat. But I'm telling you guys, like, I don't know if it's the Trump effect, but check this out. Mark Zuckerberg reportedly desires to be part of the reform movement. Trump is leading and views the Trump second term as a chance for national renewal. Like, I think he's getting jealous of Elon, guys. I don't know. That's just my take. Like, he's seeing how cool and how much fun that Trump and all of them are having. I mean, check this out. Like, I can't play the audio because of the copyright and whatnot. But this was, here, let me show you here. This was Trump showing up with Elon Musk, Melania, Barron, all of them showing up there. And then this was them at the table, and they were dancing. Look, everybody's just watching them, but they were, side by side. Like, how crazy is this, guys? Elon Musk was a Democrat. He literally voted for Biden in 2020, and he voted for Hillary in 2016. But look at him now. He's just like all cool, wearing an X shirt, sitting there having a good time next to Trump. I mean, it's just crazy what's going on right now because, again, they've also come out with, check this out. They just came out with more of the government agencies that they're wanting to do away with. And they're also going to be in Congress, guys, next week. Check this out.
Capitol Hill next week to talk to lawmakers. They are eyeing some major government reforms to slash spending. Fox Business's Hillary Vaughn, hello, my friend, is live at the White House with the latest on this. Hillary.
Great to be with you, Molly. Well, this meeting with Musk and Ramaswamy and Republican lawmakers shows that Congress is taking the goals of DOGE to cut government waste and trim spending seriously, and that they want to work together to get it done.
I think having people that bring a business mindset, having been a small business owner, bringing that business mindset into Congress, looking at agencies, I think can be a very effective strategy. So having Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, both individuals who have started companies, grown companies, we're looking forward to working with both Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy on making government both efficient and effective.
Most people spent Thanksgiving Day carving a turkey. Vivek Ramaswamy spent Thanksgiving brushing up on ways to carve up the size of the government, posting this picture of some light beach reading. Suggestions from the Congressional Budget Office on how to cut spending. The CBO in these reports warning that if we do nothing, quote, federal debt held by the public would rise to 110% of GDP at the end of 2032, reaching 185% of GDP by 2052. Debt that is high and rising as a percentage of GDP could slow economic growth, raise interest payments to foreign holders of U.S. debt, and heighten the risk of a fiscal crisis. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget does have an idea of ways to save over $1 trillion, reversing President Biden's executive actions. The group says reversing some of Biden's actions on spending, things like student debt forgiveness and health care, could save $1.4 trillion. Molly?
Oh my goodness, going to be an interesting week ahead on Capitol Hill. Hillary Vaughn, thank you for being there for us. Griff?
Thanks.
Hillary and Molly, thank you very much. For more on this, let's now bring in Trump economic advisor Steve Moore. Hi, Steve. Thank you for being here. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving, although I guess you may be even happier now to see that the market is up, hovering around 100 and the Dow hovering at about 150 or so up, 160. And the Dow and the S&P are heading for maybe its best month on record here. What do you make, I mean, as we wait for this DOGE plan to come, and to be clear, obviously, as Hillary laid out, this is going to be much more than just axing shrimp on a treadmill programs. This is going to be quite a drastic attempt to cut government.
Let's go.
Do you tie the market's surge right now with things like this DOGE meeting?
Well, Griff, you are exactly right that we've seen just a burst of confidence since the election day, and that was reflected obviously in the boom in the stock market. But if you look at the consumer confidence numbers, Griff, guess what? Way up. If you look at small business confidence, way up. In fact, even Trump's approval rating now is higher than it's ever been since he started running for president, what, 10 years ago. So Americans are on board his agenda. If you look at polls and you ask the average American, how much of your federal tax dollars do you think are wasted? Most people say somewhere between 30 and 40 cents of every dollar. So my point is, I think Donald Trump and Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk are onto something here. I think they have the American people behind them. But, you know, you were mentioning earlier that they're going to take their crusade to Capitol Hill. I think that's where they may meet some resistance, not just from Democrats, but Republicans, because guess what? These politicians love to pass out money. They love to play Santa Claus. So I think that will be the central challenge.
After the American people clearly spoke in the last election, the working class speaking out. You know, Steve, today is Black Friday. Tomorrow is often known as a Small Business Saturday. And at the top of this DOGE plan is regulatory rescissions that are coming, which is nothing but good news, I suspect, for small business owners.
Well, that's right. And those executive decisions, we think that there will probably be 100 to 200 of these that Donald Trump is literally going to sign into law basically in his first few hours in the White House. So you're quite correct. And you're also correct that those could save hundreds of billions of dollars. But what my point was that you're going to have to, a lot of these reforms that are absolutely necessary, there's no question about it. We can cut hundreds of billions of dollars of waste and duplication, fraudulent payments, all of these things. But my point is that they're going to need congressional approval for a lot of this. And I think the real challenge is, can they not only get Republicans but Democrats on board passing these? But you're right. I think they have the American public and the voters behind them 100% on this. Even by the way, how can Democrats say they're in favor of waste in government?
Yeah, it makes no sense. Real quickly, before I run out of time, I've only got about 30 seconds, Steve, but I've got to get Steve Moore's take on Trump's threat of 25% tariffs on Mexico. And the Wall Street Journal points out that that would, quote, shatter, in their words, the USMCA, the Mexico-Canada trade agreement that Trump negotiated himself.
It's very simple. We cannot allow these poisonous drugs into this country any longer. The leading cause of death of young people in America today is drug overdoses from things like fentanyl. So even though I'm not a big tariff guy, you know me, Griff, I think this is an appropriate tool to save lives in America. And Mexico and China have to help in this crusade to end this epidemic of lethal drugs into this country.
We shall see if it works.
Yes, big time, guys. I'm telling you, because when they talk about the budget, you know, guys, I bring the receipts. When you look at where we are at, our U.S. debt is $36 trillion. Our GDP is $29.3 trillion. That's not good. That is really upside down. The UK, look at the UK debt, $3.8 trillion. UK GDP, 3.5, not as bad. But look at the Russia debt, $436 billion, and their GDP is $2.2 trillion. Now, nobody's nowhere near as big as the United States is, but this is where they're looking at everything. Like, how do we dial everything back in? How do we make sure that we cut spending? Because to me, this is a once in a generation type of cut and type of reform of getting the swamp out, putting the right people in, and making sure that we don't continue the way that we are, because we're going to run ourselves into the ground. Because check this out. This is Congress. This type of stuff makes you want to slap everybody in Congress because they voted on it. They were a part of it. And we've got American people that are hurting that need help. Check this out.
Is about Panamanian mail fraud calls. So they have about $500,000, and they wanted to know whether or not the mail mating call is different in the country than it is in the city. Now, coming from a rural state like Kentucky, I can tell you the mail mating call is different in the country than it is in the city. But nobody in Kentucky wants $500,000 spent on a Panamanian frog's mail mating call. This is not a good use of money.
No.
So if someone told you your government was spending this money, would you give them more? Would you give the agency more if they were doing this, or less? I think less. In looking at the National Science Foundation spending, we also found that they spent $30,000 studying Ugandan gambling habits. Really? We're studying why people gamble in Uganda, why there's a black market in Uganda. Well, you know what? I think we know the reason. When government oppresses business and regulates business to death, they go to the black market. So if you make something illegal, you often get more of it. But we spent $30,000 traveling over to Uganda to study their gambling habits. Utter waste of money. We should not reward these people with more money. We spent about $500,000 on a video game. This is an app for your phone. I know we all need things to do when we should be working or at school. This is an app for school children to teach them alarmism over climate change. So you can click on the app and it'll scare you to death that California is going to be underwater in about 100 years. None of which is true, all of which is alarmism, and $500,000 spent by the government to alarm our school children's not a good idea.
Can y'all believe this stuff, guys? I mean, it's like you can't make it up. It's so real. But hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars to the billions of dollars, taxpayer dollars spent without our full consent on just all this crazy stuff. And for those that have tuned in that haven't seen this yet, I wanted just to show you real quick that Vladimir Putin said that Russia is still ready for peace negotiations with Ukraine. And with that, Trump's Ukraine envoy has a plan to end the war that Putin may revel in. And this is the actual stipulations of the peace deal that they are working as we speak, everybody. Front lines would be frozen by a ceasefire and demilitarized zone imposed. Russia would get limited sanctions relief. That's a big one for Russia because the entire world, besides China and Iran, has put sanctions on Russia right now. There would be a levy on Russian energy exports that would pay for Ukraine's reconstruction because they started it. Ukraine would not be asked to give up on reclaiming occupied territory. And they accept that in the future there would be diplomatic breakthrough, which would probably not occur before Putin leaves office over the territory. So this is great, great stuff happening. I also wanted to show you real quick. This is why I think that Mark Zuckerberg is trying to be cozying up to Trump right now, trying to be part of the national reform. Remember when Trump said this? Donald Trump warns Mark Zuckerberg could spend the rest of his life in prison if Meta cheats in the election. As soon as he sent that out, what happened? Mark Zuckerberg's like, oh, we ain't doing political ads. We're not doing this. We're not getting involved. I don't want to be a part of this. His butt don't want to go to jail. But what I love is that there's more agencies that are coming out right now that Elon Musk, that Vivek are that they want to essentially delete and save the taxpayers' money because these things have already expired. Check this out.
Head of the new Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk, is calling for the elimination of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, writing on X, quote, delete CFPB. There are too many duplicative regulatory agencies. The CFPB was created as part of the 2010 Dodd-Frank Act after the financial crisis by Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren to oversee parts of the financial industry that interact with consumers. Some say the agency is highly politicized, damaging, and unaccountable. During Trump's first term, he took steps to neutralize this agency, easing its enforcement of the banks. Musk also is asking users on X if the IRS should be, quote, deleted after the agency said its enforcement fund is $20 billion short after budget cuts. Biden's Deputy Treasury Secretary urging Congress to, quote, pay up. You can see in that poll, over 60% of X users said they think the agency's budget should be deleted. John Lansky, your reaction to that. Let's start with the IRS.
Okay, the IRS could be run more efficiently without any question. Maybe their technology is dated. They could update in that sense and help save money and better serve the American people. I don't know about completely eliminating the IRS. What's going to take its place? My goodness. What are you going to have? Private tax collectors like they did back in biblical times? I think
what he's talking about is eliminating Elizabeth Warren.
Right.
We're talking about the CPFB. So, I mean, that's okay. Elizabeth Warren, she came to fame. She became, Miss TV darling, so she thinks, after the financial crisis. Remember this, okay? I remember this. But that's all she's been able to hang her hat on. The financial crisis was 2007, 2008. We have moved on. I don't think that she has. And I would argue that there's enough regulation on the books with the banking industry that you actually could eliminate that agency.
The best thing, in my 20-year career in government, I've seen this many, many times, and this is a very healthy discussion to have right now. Yeah. And what it does is it says to the existing agency, so how are you going to justify your existence? Sing for your supper. But then it also begs the other question. If you eliminated it, would you need to replace it? And that's really the zero-sum game that you have to take a look at. What are we going to do if we don't have this functionality? But to your point, Cheryl, this is an agency that has all of the regulatory responsibilities handled by other agencies. It's not like if this goes away, suddenly the U.S. consumer is going to walk into a bank and say, pay us 20% interest. No, that's not going to happen.
I think Mike is making a great point. What he's speaking about is redundancy in the federal government. Yeah. When we have redundancy in the private sector and corporations, what happens? Certain departments, jobs get eliminated. And maybe there is room for a lot of cutting as far as agencies are concerned and individuals.
Well, I mean, look, I got to go back to this Elizabeth Warren thing because her entire political mantra has been greedy corporate. She's gone after the banking sector for nearly 20 years now. And I think that Musk makes a great point that maybe time is up for her. Now, the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget is trying to help DOJ make cuts. They say the federal deficit could be slashed by $1.4 trillion over the next decade by reversing some of President Biden's executive actions. Now, the report notes, unlike most reduction measures, reversing costly executive actions would not require congressional action, true, and could be done through the rulemaking process. The CRFB says up to $550 billion can be saved by eliminating Biden's plans to forgive student loan debt, including the Save Income-Driven Repayment Program, which could save up to $275 billion alone. $385 billion could be saved by targeting Biden's healthcare executive actions, $180 billion by reversing changes to the SNAP food stamp program, $150 billion from gutting vehicle carbon emission rules. That's a long list, John Lonsky.
That is a long list, and unfortunately, you're probably going to get some opposition because there are people that are benefiting from these regulations, okay? They're benefiting from this spending.
Guys, I just want to say this, sorry to interrupt, but do y'all see here how crazy this is? That we have $1.4 trillion additional in debt from Biden's executive actions. This didn't pass through Congress. They didn't go through through voting. This was just by Biden himself signing his signature, adding $1.4 trillion in debt. And he wanted to do more. That's the crazy thing, is that I don't believe Trump should be able to add on trillions of dollars of debt. No president should, to the American taxpayers without going through the proper channels of Congress. But I'm glad that they're now looking to reverse it.
They don't want to give it
As in private businesses and industries, or are you talking
I'm
about
thinking of the auto
government
industry.
employees?
The auto industry has perhaps spent something like $120 billion on investments in being able to produce EVs and the batteries that go into electric vehicles. They're not going to want to write off $120 billion all that quickly. So
The EV mandates, though, no one has bought electric cars. The consumers rejected it. The EV mandates are just nothing but, I think, just government handouts and you know who's not benefiting from that? Elon Musk, of all people.
Yeah, he's going ahead and he's pushing for the elimination of these subsidies that buyers of electric vehicles get. So this, I mean, you can't say that he's doing this for his own benefit. That's important to note. He's trying to help the United States out, and maybe with his genius, he could go ahead and pull something off where we do get this $1.4 trillion reduction in the deficit over 10 years.
I mean, $2 trillion. I mean, that's what when Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk first started talking about this, it was $2 trillion. Now, the mainstream media is scoffing at them.
So what shouldn't be lost is their approach. So notice how they're going after executive orders as opposed to we're going to try to get the Congress to reject what they've done beforehand. So because they can go, if you go after Congress and you try to say pass a law that takes out these existing laws, very, very hard to do. Whereas if you go into the executive orders, Donald Trump comes in and says, I can do this unilaterally. Obviously, he'll need support from the Congress.
Fiscal responsibility in Washington. Can't say it enough, guys.
Right.
Fiscal responsibility. Let's go.
Guys, that's the big part. I mean, just like us, you and I, everybody, we need to have the government, these politicians have a budget. They can't stick to their budget. They don't get to do more. You know, I have a 3-year-old daughter that I'm going to teach her when she gets a little bit older how to manage money. You don't have money, you don't get to buy things. You have to go work for it. I'm telling you this, that I'm so excited for where things are going with Vivek and with Elon. You got to remember, Vivek's a smart guy. Like, I feel he's worth over $1 billion. Elon's worth over $320 billion. You don't get there by not being smart, not knowing how to work things. At the same time, too, Vivek is really smart in the law, too. You saw him on Thanksgiving. He literally had papers where he was going over government procedures, government laws, how things get passed and whatnot to try to work to pave the way to make this come to life. And that's the best part about it. He went to Harvard. He went to Yale. I mean, just super smart guy. And I'm glad that they said, look, we want to do this for 1 year and then we want to get out. We should be able to clean up government, set the right rules, and be able to exit and be able to allow the system to operate without us having to babysit it every single day, which is what I love. Get in, get out. Term limits, too. Just want to say thank you to everybody that's watching. Thank you so much for all your support, to all of our members of the channel. Let's go. And to all the subscribers, guys, I'm telling you, y'all are so amazing. If you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button so I can serve you every day with the top news. And thank you so much to everybody that is given a super chat. And if you don't mind, if you haven't hit the thumbs up like button, please do so. It really does help out. And thank you so much to Summerman, Teresa Pittman, B1 Sly One, Mr. Tracy J. Norby. Y'all show them some love in the chat, everybody. Just appreciate y'all all so much. And I'm just so thankful and grateful for this family that we're creating, this community that we're creating. I just want to keep pushing it, keep growing it so that we keep giving back. Love you all. I'll see you in the next one.